Hello YouTube, James and John here today to talk about the phenomenon that is Pokemon Go. Now everyone's out playing it right now. You walk along the street and you're probably going to be walking alongside someone that's going to be playing it, trying to catch that Squirtle. But there's one major problem with it. What do you think that is, John?
The problem, as anyone that's played the game will tell you, is the battery life. You go outside, you're playing for what, like 3-4 hours, and most people will find their phones are dead by this point. Especially frustrating if you're trying to catch the aforementioned Squirtle.
That's really difficult, and I've been out with you guys before. We've been playing Pokemon Go and the battery has died and I've been absolutely gutted. So we've taken 6 of the best flagship phones that you chose in a previous video. We have the iPhone 6s Plus, the LG G5, the HTC 10, the OnePlus 3, the Nexus 6P, and the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. Now let's get into the test. So how do we do this test, John?
Okay, so few things to note. We have all of them connected to the same Wi-Fi. We have all of them set to full brightness. We have the GPS on for all of them so it can track our movement in Pokemon Go. We have the battery saving settings at default. A lot of these phones handle battery saving slightly differently, but we think it's a fair test if we just leave them exactly how most people are going to use them, which is at their default settings.
Now you might be interested to know, but the Android version we were using on each of the phones was 0.29.2. Now that's probably going to be updated in the next few days, and there are a few bugs in this version of the app, but this is the version we are using for this test. So after the first hour, in first place is the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge with 81% left over. The LG G5, the Nexus 6P and the OnePlus 3 all seem to be struggling at this point. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. In terms of our real racing battery test, it seems to be fairly similar across that one. The only change here is that the Apple iPhone 6s Plus is doing slightly better this time than it did last time in relative terms.
We'll have to keep an eye on that as the rest of the test goes on.
Definitely.
So I'm currently using a Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, and I'm really struggling with the battery life when playing Pokemon Go. How have you found it so far?
So I'm playing it on an iPhone 5S, and I've actually been taking out a portable battery charger whilst I've been playing. So the biggest problem I've been having with the game has actually been the frequent crashes that I experience, mostly when I'm catching Pokemon. It does the zoom in on the ball and then nothing happens.
So one of our colleagues in the office is using a Nexus 5X along with a battery pack, and he was charging his phone at one point and found that the phone was still dying even though he had battery pumping into the phone. So it's a really intensive app.
So at hour 2, we've still got our Samsung S7 Edge in first place, and the LG G5, Nexus 6P and OnePlus 3 are trailing behind with 43%, 35% and 37% respectively.
Yeah, the Nexus 6P is really struggling at this point, but the really interesting thing to note is the iPhone 6s Plus has 59% battery. Now at this stage in our real racing test that you've probably already watched, had 52%. Now that's a big jump there. This is the only phone that's doing better in the Pokemon test than real racing.
What this suggests to me is that maybe the Apple iPhone 6s Plus is better in terms of its GPS power consumption than it is with its GPU power consumption. Obviously real racing, very graphically intensive game, whereas most of the battery wastage from Pokemon Go seems to be coming from the constant GPS updates.
Yeah. So we signed into the same Pokemon Go account on each of these devices, and they're all in a similar location, so the GPS signal should be focused on that same location. Now one thing to really note here is there is a bug which we call the infinite Pokeball bug, where the app just keeps loading and you just keep getting that really annoying little logo in the corner going round and round. That happened on quite a few of the phones. We noticed it on all of the phones in fact. So that is one thing to note, and that's something we really hope that the Pokemon company sorts out in a future update. So we have our first fatality. It's the Nexus 6P. It died under 3 hours, exactly 2 hours 59.
Bit of a surprise result here. The LG G5 has actually died at the same time as the OnePlus 3 at 3 hours and 6 minutes. That means that the last 10% of battery life on the LG G5 dropped off very, very quickly. It dropped from 10 to 0 over the same amount of time as the OnePlus 3 dropped from 4 to 0.
And our fourth fatality was the HTC 10, that lasted 3 hours and 15 minutes.
So at the 5-hour mark, it looks like we have our winner. It's the Samsung S7 Edge, which still has 4% of battery after 5 hours of running Pokemon Go. Our last fatality was the Apple iPhone 6s Plus, which lasted 4 hours and 41 minutes. Bit surprising, isn't it, Pexy?
Yeah, well, iPhones get really bad rep for battery, and this is the smallest battery pack in all of these phones, but they're really good at optimizing that battery. So I'm not that surprised by this, but compared to our real racing test, where it was in 4th place, coming right up to 2nd, that's really impressive.
It's a big improvement for the Apple 6s Plus.
Yeah. So I think the most interesting story here is probably the Nexus 6P. It really struggled with Pokemon Go. When we did our Real Racing 3 test a couple of weeks ago, it came third. It did really well in that test. I was quite surprised by it myself, but here for Pokemon Go, it really struggled with the Wi-Fi. It really struggled with the GPS running in the background, and it didn't even last the 3 hours. So it's probably not the phone to buy if you just want to play Pokemon Go.
The phone you want to buy if you just want to play Pokemon Go is the Samsung S7 Edge. But that's maybe not the only reason why you want to buy this phone. It's got a lot of other great features which you can read about in our review on the site or watch our video review here.
Right there. And we also want to know what phone you're using to play Pokemon Go. Are you using an iPhone 4S where it's really struggling? I know a friend that really struggles to play Pokemon Go on that phone. Or are you using a brand new phone? Let us know in the comments below. We want to know everything.
And if you're just sick of us all talking about Pokemon Go constantly, and we've seen you coming, we've got a video right here which you can watch, which asks the question whether Pokemon Go is here to stay or whether it's just a passing fad.
Thanks for watching, thanks for liking, and thanks for subscribing. See you again soon.